Hey Wargamers, I've been waiting to make this video for years at this point, and that is a video about a new series of invasive wargaming miniatures, new commanders for the greater good that we have. Now, this video is going to introduce you to the new sculpts, the new models, and talk a little bit about the process before that. But just to get out of the way, this is what they look like. These are the renders of these models once assembled, and they're available on the Etsy shop. So if you want one of these to use as a proxy or something else in your games, go ahead, head on over to the Etsy shop and pick one up. But yeah, I've been really excited about these models for a long time, and I'm so excited that I can finally tell you about them because it's taken a while. Okay, so if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, or even if you've just done some, time online, you've probably seen the original Invasive Wargaming mini that I released years ago at this point. It was something that I created in collaboration with Heresy Lab as part of a Kickstarter for them in 2020. Basically, the deal was that I would help generate ideas and oversee the development of a series of models for them, and in return, I would get to create my own model using their infrastructure. And so that's what the original Invasive Wargaming Mini is. And that was a really cool process, something I learned a lot from, and I think a lot of people liked the model that we came up with there. And so in 2023, I had the opportunity to partner with Heresy Lab again and do another Kickstarter. And of course, I wanted to utilize that opportunity to create another invasive wargaming model because the first one I really liked, and it just worked out well. So I was like, let's do that again. That sounds great. But that said, this is going to be the last model that I produce with Heresy Lab. That relationship is not going to continue. We don't need to. I don't need to get into it in this video because it's not the point of the video. If people are really interested in what's going on there, I can certainly produce another video talking about that. But the long and short of it is just that this is going to be it. So if you liked the first Invasive Wargaming Mini, which is now back in stock, so that's available on the Etsy shop. This is going to be the final production round. This is going to be the final batch of resin minis for that particular model, as well as the new models. So these are cast, not printed. So the same type of resin that you would get from any other model manufacturer. It's a high quality, high fidelity resin cast. And this model, the original Invasive Wargaming model, has multiple head options, multiple weapon options, just as it has before. So it's exactly the same. It has that custom base, that Invasive Wargaming logo base that we've always shipped with it. But when they're gone this time. And so I want to let you guys know that that those are available again, but there's a limited quantity of them. So if you missed your chance to get one of these originally, now is the time. But like I said, I wanted to make new models using this partnership, and we came up with some really cool art. So basically the way that this works is because I'm not a concept artist, I'm not a 3D modeler or anything like that. So my ideas are in my head and I need other people to make them reality. And so I worked with a really cool concept artist named Zhao, and he did some concept art on both the Kickstarters that I did with Heresy Lab, and this is what he came up with based on my descriptions of what I wanted. The intention here is it's kind of a little bit more of feudal Japan, a little bit more rustic of an aesthetic, not as purely high tech, but something that has a cool aesthetic that will be distinct from other types of models and indeed from the original Invasive Wargaming model as well. But still something that's infantry, still something that you could use on the tabletop. And so I went for another infantry commander for a couple of reasons. One is that it has really good tabletop value. This is something that you could use multiple times in a given army. You're not going to want necessarily just one of them, but if you do, it'll be a nice accent piece. I think there's a lot of mileage in infantry characters in general because you don't want like a whole bunch of the same sculpt, and so even if you have multiple models that are supposed to represent the same thing, it's fun to have them be somewhat distinct from each other so you can tell them apart and add a little bit more character to your army. So that's something that I did here, and I also wanted to avoid some of the issues with larger models. Of course, there was a temptation to do something like a mech suit or a battle suit, but there are, namely, Piper makes such good battle suits that I was like, whatever I do would be derivative of that, and I really don't want it to do that. I want it to be unique. I want it to be its own thing, and Piper makes just does such a good job. Piper is amazing, and she does great work. So if you really want a battle suit, you have her at your disposal. But I want to do something different, right? And so we went with the infantry character, and it's something that you can produce a lot easier than a big battle suit where we'd have to have, like, you know, lots of big bits and all sorts of, kind of janky things that really are just better in plastic than the type of resin that I'd be working in. So that's why I went with the infantry commander. I went with something that was a little bit different look and feel, right? Like, I wanted to tie into some anime tropes with that feudal element. I wanted to keep movement. That was one of the things with the original model that I really liked and people seem to respond to, is that sense of movement. The original model has the guy like kind of jumping off of a drone that's skidding on the ground. This isn't quite as dynamic, right? We're not jumping off of anything, but there is, clearly, there's definitely an intent, and hopefully it comes through. Like, this is supposed to be like a windy kind of, a windy cliff face that we're standing on, and the hair and the cloth is all blowing, and it's just like kind of badass is what I'm thinking of. I don't know, I got some hard rock music playing in the back of my head when I'm looking at this thing, and it's visually distinct, right? Something that has a clear silhouette that on the tabletop is going to stand out as something different and very clear as to what it is. So those are kind of some of the design philosophy elements, and it took a long time to get this done, right? It took a fair amount of time to get the concept art done, just by nature of having to get what's in my head into the head of someone else, and then onto not paper, but into an image, and then from that the concept art is taken by a sculptor. This was done by a guy named Go, and he was great to work with. He also did a lot of sculpting for some of the other Kickstarter stuff, and that's also a very challenging process, because you have to take something that is a 2D render that clearly in your head has particular volumes and depths and this third dimension, and translate it into, again, someone else's mind, right? So when the sculptor looks at a certain component of this concept art, they have to understand, is this a thin piece of metal? Is it a thick piece of metal? How extreme is the curvature? What's the weighting and all this sort of stuff. So again, these are things that I learned with the first Kickstarter, that with the second Kickstarter I thought would go a lot easier, but there are certain parts of that just, no matter how many times you do it, you can't bridge the brain gap between two individuals, right? We're not psychic, so it takes a lot of collaboration and communication. But I think ultimately we ended up with a model that had a really high fidelity to that concept art, and so that's what this is. You can see the render next to the concept art, and they're strikingly similar, right? Like, I can superimpose these on one another, and the silhouette is very, very close, which is cool. It's exciting. I really like it. And so this is a model that I'm calling Commander for the Greater Good 2. The original Invasive Wargaming model is called Commander for the Greater Good 1. Commander for the Greater Good 2 is this initial concept. However, because of issues with the manufacturer, this is a resin print. So part of what happened was that this was supposed to be provided to me as a resin cast. It was not, and so I had to work with external partners to get this produced. And one way that I was able to do that was with a resin print. So it is a print, it is not a cast, unlike the original Invasive Wargaming model, which is a resin cast. This sculpt is a resin print, but it is available, and the print is high fidelity to the sculpt. Now, I also wanted some alternatives. I wanted different head options, different weapon options, kind of like we did before. I wanted there to be some mix and match capability here, but it didn't manifest in quite the same way. The intention originally was to have different heads that could switch out, but because of the inclusion of the long flowing hair in the original sculpt, that made switching out heads really hard, just because the way that the model was sculpted was not that the hair was its own piece, but instead integrated into the rest of the body. And so there wasn't like a simple area that you could just like delete to create a cast for a new model or something like that, right? And so instead, I have the same kind of sculpt repositioned in different ways and using some different elements. So the base model for Commander for the Greater Good 3 is a full multi-part resin cast. So just like the original Invasive Wargaming models, it's full high quality resin cast, and it has some differences compared to Commander for the Greater Good 2. The main difference is that the head is different, right? We're using kind of like a more top knotty ponytail type of head, and the model is resting its left hand on a blade that's on its hip, and so that's something that's different. The feet and everything are slightly different as well too, but for the most part they're very similar despite the arm placement and the head. Commander for the Greater Good 3 also includes an alternative head, which for the same reasons that Commander for the Greater Good 2 is resin printed, is also resin printed, and so the Commander for the Greater Good 3 comes with mostly cast resin, but there is this alternative head that's provided as a printed resin piece. And so yeah, this is the new Invasive Wargaming model. Like I said, this is going to be the final production run of cast resin for both of these models, for the original Invasive Wargaming model, for the new Commander for the Greater Good model. These are all the final resin cast run. So if you want to get a hold of them, now is your chance. But yeah, I've been really excited to share this with you. I've wanted to share it with you for, again, years at this point, and and so I'm just making a video telling you about it. It's I know it's not super high, not a lot of bells and whistles in this video, but I just wanted to let you know that they're out here now, and I hope you like the sculpt. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you'll enjoy playing with it, because that's kind of what the whole hobby is about, right? Is just getting cool models and putting them on the table and making them duke it out and roll the dice, right? So yeah. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Is this something that works for you? Is this something that doesn't work for you? What what are the things that you like or dislike about these? I am super open to constructive feedback. So let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.